Hello, I want to teach about 3D printers today. Normally in my class, I would have a 3D printer, show all the parts, move it around, let the students touch it and see it running. Now, I don't have access to my 3D printer right now because I'm at home, and I'm not able to go to school right now, but I think I can teach you the very basics of it. And then I would urge everyone to please search the internet for some other links to other videos, seeing the 3D printers running. When I get back into school, I'll try to record one with a 3D printer in my hands, but I can definitely help you understand how the basics of them work, and then that'll help you to better understand the other videos. So to start off, you should do the Tinkercad videos that I did. When you've done Tinkercad, what you're doing is you're creating a three-dimensional object. So for instance, I created this. Now I created this using actually an Xbox Connect, an Xbox One Connect, and I scanned a student, and then we put legs on her and put her name on it and put the guitar, and then we were able to actually print this. Now, any 3D object that you have, the way it's going to work is this. You press export if you want to print it, and you're going to say download. I always download the STL. You could probably download the other ones. That would be totally fine, but STL works really well for me. And the way it works is I have a program installed on my computer, and once it downloads, I can open it and it will open in my program. Now you'll see there's a picture of the 3D printer, which I'll get to in a little bit. And what happens is it will be able to create directions for that 3D printer to be able to print that exact object. So as you see, it opened it up, it loaded it. It would be very large. This is a picture of the inside of my printer. Now let me give you a better understanding of what that is. This is my printer. Okay. And this picture right here, this rectangle, is the print bed right here. Now, this is the printer I have. I think there actually might be a MakerBot version of this or something. But this is the Chinese version of the printer. I have it. It works wonderfully. It has dual extruders, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It can actually print two different colors at the same time. But inside of it, there is a print bed. Let me show you. It looks just like this, okay? And there's a mat on top of that that's sort of like a non-stick surface. Some people have to use glue and other things, but this non-stick surface is awesome. I can keep it clean and it works really well, and I don't have to deal with models sticking too much to it. So what ends up happening is this rectangle represents this surface, okay? What I do is I set up all my settings in here, and most of the time I don't really have to change much. I choose which extruder it's coming through, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and I choose my temperatures. I don't really change those often. Once you get it set, it sort of works. I'm sure if I got more advanced in my printing, I'd be doing a lot more. And then you just hit prepare. And what ends up happening is once you hit prepare, it runs through the whole process and it's figuring out the directions it wants to give to the printer. Now it says, hey, this would take almost 5 hours to print. And then you can click on layer and you can actually see, and I think this is pretty cool. Let me zoom in. You can actually see every single layer that the 3D printer is going to print. Now let me help you understand exactly what's going on here. So I'm going to go back to the basics. Way before the 3D printer, okay? We're going back in time. So this is a hot glue gun, all right? 3D printers work very much the same way. So the way it works is this. We have hot glue, okay? It's a solid, right? You plug this in or it runs off batteries. It gets really hot. That's why it has this stand so it doesn't burn what it's on. It gets really hot. And when you squeeze this trigger, it pushes the glue that way. And if this is hot enough, the glue can melt and come out the end and you can do hot glue. Now, building off of that, there are things called 3D pens, which a lot of you may have seen. This is at least the original one I saw, the3doodler.com. This is the one I saw, I believe it was a Kickstarter for years ago. And it works the same exact way as, maybe I'll go back up and you can see that, as a hot glue gun. So what it's doing is And maybe I can actually get a picture. Okay. So we've got this plastic. Instead of hot glue, we have plastic going through the back, just like the hot glue gun. Okay. But in this case, it's plastic. And there are different types of plastics. There's ABS and PLA and a bunch of other ones. All right. The benefits to those, you could look into those on a different website. I am not uh, a really good source for the benefits of the different types of plastics. I know ABS tends to be stronger in my printing, and PLA. I don't really know the huge benefits. So look into that. I haven't had a lot of time to learn that, but I know how they work and I know how to fix them. So um, this medium, this plastic, it feeds through just like the hot glue gun. And instead of squeezing a trigger like in a hot glue gun, what this is doing is it has a motor. Okay, it has a motor, and that motor, when you push the button, causes that plastic to melt. This is heated up, so the plastic melts and it gets forced out this extruder head, just like the hot glue gun. This is the extruder head. Here's the extruder head. It gets hot enough where it melts, but it cools down pretty quickly. So then you can have a solid. I'll tell you, drawing three-dimensional objects like we saw at the beginning of this, let me refresh this so you actually see it. At the beginning of this website, I have to say it is not as easy as this website makes it look. Um, but hey, maybe different 3D pens are better. My 3D pens are not as easy to use. They work really well and they're a lot of fun. All right, I have uh, no viewpoint on which 3D pen is better. If you want to buy one, I would suggest looking at reviews maybe on Amazon or look up 3Doodler because I think they are the original. But okay, so then what we end up having is um, obviously you could draw things with this and you can make some really cool things. I saw a really nice video online where someone made a Sonic the Hedgehog and they even put lights in it. It's really cool, but it's limited, right? There's only so perfect you can draw. So what we do is we take those extruder heads, the extruder, just like the 3D pen. And what we do is, I don't know how well you can see this, but here's an extruder. All right, let me see if I can get a better picture of that. So the extruder, what ends up happening is instead of having to hold the pen, all right, well, instead of having to hold the pen, what the 3D printer does is it holds the extruder for you. And so what it does is this. Here it is. Perfect. Okay, it was right next to it. So what you have is the extruder heads here. This one has two because I said it can do two different colors. And what you have is it's on these guideways, these tracks, and it moves back and forth. Okay. Now, what it can do is it can move left and right. So it will be right here. Here's the extruder head. It can move left and right. It can actually move backwards and forwards. And then this one does not move up and down. The actual build plate moves up and down. So what happens when it starts printing is this build plate moves really, really close to the extruder heads. And then it prints one layer just like this person's printing. So it would, or they're drawing, it would print this layer, okay? It would draw this whole layer. And then what would end up happening is that build plate would move down a tiny bit. And then it would draw another layer on top of it. I suggest going on YouTube, search 3D printing cement. There are some really, really cool videos. I'll try to link them in the description below. But there's a guy that set it up. He's printing a 3D castle. In China, there are some people, organizations printing houses. I'm sure that happens in the United States as well. And the way it works is they're printing it in cement. So instead of heating it up like plastic, they just sort of get a quick setting cement that then gets squeezed out of the extruder head. So we've got this 3D printer. We've got rolls of plastic on the back of it. And those rolls of plastic are just like this. Okay. And they're filament. They're called filament. And I get them for, I think it was like $25 a roll for ABS. There are fumes to ABS, so you want it in a well-ventilated area. I'm sure there are fumes to all of them, but I've heard ABS is one of the the ones where you really want some good ventilation. So these are mounted on the back of my printer. Some of these printers, the plastic will be the filament will be mounted somewhere else, but mine are mounted on the back, and it feeds it through these tubes, and it squeezes it through the extruders, and it prints. So if that doesn't make full sense, I really, really urge you to go on YouTube, and I want you to watch a bunch of videos, okay? Make sure your parents are okay with it, but search how does a 3D printer work and all that stuff. Now, I really want to show you this before you go, though. So I did say you can print the things that you've made, which is really cool. And you can actually make these to be the exact right sizes that you want. A wonderful resource that I love, and this is by MakerBot. This is Thingiverse.com. And what you can do is you can search for things to print. So for instance, say I really, I ride a motorcycle and I needed a part for my motorcycle, and it's a little plastic piece and I didn't want to spend money on it. So I can look up my motorcycle and I can see if anyone's made anything for it before I go into Tinkercad and I go ahead and design it. I can look on Thingiverse and see, hey, did anyone make this already? And we'll notice that a bunch of things pop up. It is going very slowly, and I apologize for that. But what ends up happening is I'm able to download any of those designs, just like on that previous page. All right, so here I am at the DR650 search page, and what it has is a bunch of different parts that people have made. Some of these parts I don't need, but say I need this part, and this is actually the exact part that I needed. When you click on it, what it's going to do is it's going to open up a page for you. All right, so it opens up this page, and what you're able to do is download all the files. They're free. And so then when you download them, you can open them in the same program that I opened them before. The way you would do that is by going down here. If you're on a Chromebook, you're not going to be able to open these. You'd actually have to have them printed. But with this file, all you have to do is you have to open it up, and so you'll open it up, and what you'll do is you'll have to extract it. So I right click on it, hit extract all. And then what ends up happening is you get that STL file. And when you double click on it, that STL file will open up in your slicer software. My slicer software is QuityTech. I really, really like it. The reason why I like it is I have a lot of control. There are other programs out there, and I would urge you to search for the one that's best for you. They have different options. I used a few others. I tend to come back to this one. Number one, I'm used to it, but number two, I really, really like all the controls I have over everything. But here it is, and I can even click on it, and I can see the exact size. So this is in millimeters. I can actually see how big it is. So it's 35 millimeters by 35 millimeters by 16 millimeters tall, and it gives a lot of really cool information about it. Make sure it fits. If it's not the exact size, I can even change the size. So say I want it to be 34 millimeters and I have uniform scaling. Now when I click, it changes it to that correct size. So if you print it and it doesn't fit, you need it a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. It works really well. The last thing is when you are working on this software, if you end up, and maybe size doesn't matter, okay, let's say size doesn't matter at all. If you have something too big, you'll see that it changes colors. That means it's too large for the print surface. You need to actually make it just so it fits in there, and it'll change colors. Now that's for QuityPrint. Might be different for other printers, but I hope you learned a lot. What I'd like you to do next is I want you to go to my Quizlet. I've created a Quizlet for the parts of a 3D printer. Following this, I'm going to make another video on what I'd like you to do with that. But check out the Quizlet below and have a wonderful day. Wash those hands 20 seconds